What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Big Time Football Talk. So the latest thing in the college football playoff is a proposal for a 12-team college football playoff bracket. Now, before I get to my take on this, I just kind of want to outline some of the rules and how this would work. So it would be the 6 highest ranked conference champions. They would take 6 at-large teams. They would also take the top 4 teams and would receive a first round bye, and the final 3 rounds, the bowl games would be played at neutral sites. So my take on this, more is not always better. Okay, let's be honest. Columbia University did a study about giving customers more choices and their more likelihood to purchase something. So a Bay Area supermarket did a sample of 24 flavors of jams. And they found that on a different day when they moved down their selection to 6, so they compared the selection of 6 jams to 24 jams to 6 jams. The sales increased on the jams a ton when they moved it down to 6. So what I'm getting at here is too much choice increases cognitive loads. People won't be able to choose. Look at all these games that take place. There's so many games in college football. College football is on all the time. And, let's be honest, Cincinnati would have been in this year. How many people, would have watched Cincinnati versus Alabama or Clemson if they met? Let's be honest. With more games, it's just like, that if you watch a team, like everyone knows Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State are good, and everyone wants them to go down. So when they're playing, you likely want to tune in either if you're a fan or you want to see them get upset. But when you have too many of these games, it's just like you got to choose. Obviously, people are going to pick to do other activities, and that's the thing. When that there's just 4 teams, there's going to be 2 matchups, and they're likely going to be 2 elite teams that have had tremendous, outstanding seasons. So there's a more likelihood you'll tune into the just 2 games compared to however many extra games there would be in the 12-team playoff. So that's my first take, that more is not always better. And the other thing is more teams, more opportunities. That is not true. Let's be honest, college football, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State have separated themselves. Oklahoma, Georgia, LSU can sneak in the mix with recruiting. They can beat these teams on a given year. Perfect example, LSU 2019, everything came together. Joe Burrow transfer, they brought in Joe Brady to run the offense and get that side of the ball going. That was kind of an exception. But let's be honest, most semifinal games have been dominated by Alabama, Clemson, or Ohio State. I think they've counted for like 50 to 60% of the games that have, these playoff games have not been competitive, let's be honest. Starting in year 1, Oregon, Florida State, that was a blowout. The national championship, or the other semifinal, Ohio State, Bama was a good game, but then the national championship, Ohio State, Oregon was a blowout. LSU, 2019 also, that game against Oklahoma was a blowout. So you hear what I'm getting at. And the thing is, you'd see a lot of rematches, too. And it would be a SEC very heavy, too. Like, for example, they kind of did a format of what this year would have been. So, this year, maybe not the best example because it was a COVID year, but bear with me here. So it would have been Cincinnati or Georgia would have played Alabama. Okay, that would have been the 8-9 seed game. Here's the problem. We saw that game. And Georgia, with opt-outs and injuries, still beat Cincinnati, a team that just does not recruit on the level that Alabama and Georgia does, let's be honest. So then Georgia would have won the game, still with their players back. I think it's safe to say they would have won the game. So you would have saw a rematch of Alabama-Georgia. Now, how many people would want to see that rematch? Okay, let's go to the 5-12 game. Likely would have been Texas A&M versus Oregon. Oregon still was a good team this year, let's be honest, but there was question whether they even deserve to be in the Pac-12 championship game and let alone win it, since Washington actually won the division. So you would have had Texas A&M versus Oregon. Mike may have been a good football game. Texas A&M likely the better football team. Texas A&M versus Notre Dame. Now, okay, this might be a good football game, but here's the problem. That team would have likely played the winner of Alabama and Georgia. And Alabama, not even likely, probably would have won again. So now you're looking at Notre Dame, Alabama, which a game we saw was a blowout. Alabama or Alabama A&M, which we saw was a blowout. So, I'm not saying there could be some good games here, but let's be honest, it's kind of just I don't know. It's kind of almost just a waste of time, and it's so many games. It could be, you could see a team play 16, 17 games, so it's more games, more chances that a guy could get injured that has his sights on the NFL. And, bowl games would just throw bowl games out the window. Bowl games are just about completely meaningless now since it's all on the playoff. And, it's just one of the last points I want to make here is, there's a reason why I've always loved college football, and that's because the regular season is more important than any other sport during the BCS era, and now you can still argue even with the college football playoff, even though there's teams like Iowa who didn't make the playoff this year. People kind of forgot what they were doing once they started, 0-2 or 1-2, whatever it was. Now that since their playoff chances were out the window. But I remember 2010, the one team went down 3 straight weeks in a row, and I think for 2 of those teams, for all 3 of those teams, it knocked out their chance to play in the national championship. If you remember, that year was Auburn, Oregon, both played undefeated in the national championship game. Oregon, who ran through everyone, and Cam Newton and Auburn with a magical season. So that just shows on a Saturday night primetime game, everyone was tuning into the games, because your season was on the line. That's how important the college football regular season is. And that's what I loved, is that every game had almost there's a lot of Saturday night primetime games that had a championship-like feel, because if you lose that game, you might be done for the season. And I just love the importance of the regular season. You see the NBA now, there's guys just sit out, load management. It's almost become more popular almost not to play. You're like, oh, James Harden, or not just picking on him, but who's not playing tonight? Oh, what goofy outfit he's wearing on the sideline, and then no one tunes into it. You saw last year the NBA Finals were at an all-time low because, it's just the regular season dragged on forever and people almost, lost interest. The COVID, had to do with it. But, baseball, 160-some games. What does it matter if Tigers or whoever MLB team loses, game 140 when you're, way up in the division and already have the playoff, already have clinched the playoffs. It's, towards the end of, July or August. But, this is, it's a big thing about money. This is going to bring in a lot more revenue, but it's just like, man, I just hate to see that, the college football, regular season devalued, and hate to hear people say that this is a meaningless regular season game. That would, that breaks my heart, because that's just why I've always said, I love college football. I just love, the regular season. I love tuning in to see if, this team still has a shot to, get to one of those top 2, a few years ago, or the top 4 spots back in the day. So it's just too bad to see, and it's just, it's going to be Clemson, Ohio State, and Bama, and, maybe LSU, Georgia, or Oklahoma, the teams that recruit on the high level that are still going to have the chance. These other teams aren't just going to – it's not going to magically, increase Cincinnati's recruiting and take it to the whole nother level. It's still, Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State are still going to dominate and win most of these games. Not much is going to change. So people that, think that the exposure is just going to magically help these teams get, better recruiting, and this is just going to, everyone keeps saying save college football, but, college football is still one of the most popular – I think second most popular sport in America behind the National Football League, and people always tune into college football. And I just hate to see the regular season devalued, and see bowl games meaningless, and you see who knows, I mean, yeah, it's too bad. And this is it's something I'm passionate about, because this is why I could really safely say that I love college football. And not to say I wouldn't. I'll still watch college football no matter if they go to 64 teams, 120 teams, however many freaking teams you want to put in this thing. But I just I grew up loving college football for the regular season. Meaningfulness, and to see what teams had that shot to the final race. And I was even old school. I didn't hate the BCS. I think four teams is perfect. And there's always going to be the argument about, with 12 teams, there's always going to be an argument about what about the 13 or the 14 or the 15th seed. Same with the 4th seed every year. Well, what about this year? What about Texas A&M versus Notre Dame? So you're never going to win. You might as well have just the stay with the top 4. So you're going to get 2 likely elite matchups, and those aren't always the best matchup, but you're still going to get. Odds are it shows about a little less than half of those games are competitive. You're still going to get a Clemson Ohio State from a couple years ago, or the Oklahoma Georgia Rose Bowl from 3 years ago. You're still going to get some games like that. So you might as well just have 4 elite teams make it, and it just one key matchup you can zone in on where there's 2 elite teams that have had tremendous seasons. So yeah, that's going to do it. That's just my take on that. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Stay tuned for more from the show. Till next time, peace.